are things in NZ?
NZ as we used to call it.
NZ, sorry. Vacation, got all the family here.
Oh, cool.
Why not?
You slip in a few work things during the vacation.
I told the new owner that I would continue to work while I'm here. And
congrats on that. That would have been a huge change.
Yeah, it's definitely a very huge change.
You must be happy with it if you went ahead with it. Was it E-Way?
E-Way, correct.
Very cool. Yeah, certainly interesting times ahead for you guys.
I did see that you had a blog post on mergers and acquisitions, so maybe we can talk about that a little bit today.
I have to admit, you guys being bought was the trigger for me to say, seems to be happening every other month. So yeah, just trying to keep track. And it's been a few years, and obviously our initial stab at it missed quite a few, but some people have let us know what we missed, and so we tried to add a few more people and companies and links in. But I'm pretty sure there's still lots and lots that are not on people's radar. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting summary or a snapshot of how far Magento has come as a community and how the changes seem to be lately. But then again, looking back, it has been there forever.
And the big news today with Ben Marks?
Not surprising, I would say, as in the only surprising thing for me out of it is how quickly it happened. My thought would have been Ben gives himself a little bit more of a holiday and sort of, just let it sit and see what his options are before embarking on a new journey. But he was never going to go away from this space, as in he's definitely an asset to any community that has him.
Yeah, and I talked to Ben right after our sale. So tell me what's new for you? What's going to happen this year? I just put my notice in. I'm like, what? Yeah, and I knew it was happening. I knew it was coming up, and I suspect that Ben had some shopware already in his, like they'd been talking. And I joined the master's call this morning, and I asked Sherry, like, what is it that, who's going to be able to, or who is going to replace Ben, or what is the plans? And she said, who could replace Ben? So I tend to agree with that. It's a different environment now. And I don't remember if you remember, is it Matt Assay? He was the Adobe spokesperson when Adobe bought Magento. I don't know if you were at Imagine when he was there. And then he not quickly, but he then soon left for AWS. So it's a corporate environment now, right?
Yes. And I think you sort of wanted to bring up community, and I think that's probably the main thing which Adobe hasn't done really well at all. As in, it's always inevitable that existing people, once you get bought up from a bigger company, that people don't see the right fit or don't have the career path or the opportunities that they previously had, that they will leave. But I think Adobe as a whole hasn't done well to establish new figures and new leadership, which comes out of Adobe looking after sort of the Magento space. I'm sure Jason Woosley is still around, but I think that's probably one of the few people from the previous leadership team that's still nominally on board with Commerce/Magento. And yeah, obviously we've had Ben, but Ben never really had a chance to introduce who his successor would be. I think COVID did the rest, as in if there was a bit of longer term succession planning, it would have been a great opportunity to take that successor around the world and introduce that person. But obviously there wasn't really many events to pull that off, nor is there a dedicated person currently to fill those shoes. We'll see what Adobe has planned for the whole evangelism side of things?
You know, I think it's interesting, and it's interesting that like eBay, Adobe, how those acquisitions made, and then everybody was so down on the community and they're going to ruin the community, and then somehow the community rallied.
It's an interesting one from me because I always feel like I have an interesting vantage point from New Zealand, as in I'm so far away. So for me, it's usually trying to read the tea leaves, and ever so often when I make the trip to the Imagines or so, you know, I feel like I dip my toe into it and feel a bit of the current in terms of what the Magento community is doing. And obviously I'm involved in the local community, but that's fair to say that that has definitely changed quite a bit in recent times, as in there's still a nucleus of people that are very involved with Magento, but it's definitely getting smaller, which is, I think, a fair summary of where Magento is at in terms of the type of merchants and the type of people using Magento.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and we're hopefully planning on spending some winters here in Hawaii, and it's interesting that we're 1 hour apart, 23 hours apart, but it's only 1 hour in effective time.
Yes.
But as we spend more time here, it'll be interesting to see how, if Hawaii being a US state, but next week we're going to be 5 hours difference from Central Time, is that going to make us even more disconnected from the world, or does the internet and Twitter and everything else help us all be part of it? I think for me, the hardest part is communicating with my friends in Europe when I'm here. Just the time zone really clashes. So I don't know about how do you work out some of those time differences when you want to talk to somebody in England or Germany?
So I guess the summary is we have always been fairly asynchronous, as in like email is the best way to communicate with us. And I am a little bit of a night owl, so that obviously helps if people get in touch while I'm still up. That sort of allows a little bit of quicker turnaround on a few things. But yeah, the time difference to Europe from us is pretty much exactly 12 hours. So that's one of the, I think for the US, it's just okay. So that's one of the reasons we picked 8 p.m. European time for our ExtDN open chat, which is happening tomorrow, as that will allow me to tune in early morning, just after the first release.
All right, so let's talk about ExtDN for a little bit then. I remember, and I can't believe it's been like since 2016, right, that launched? Is that correct?
Yes. So the first idea, really, the first people getting together really was 2016. That was like the early stages of Magento 2, really. And that, I think, was the main driver for me, is to get people in the same boat together to get an idea of, hey, here's this completely new platform. All of a sudden, all these people want all these things from extension developers, but wait a second, like we are supposed to make this huge step forward without really any idea of where it will end up, and if it's even useful, or if it's a good investment for us to be on board. So yeah, trying to get an idea of what other extension developers at the time were doing. And so the other thing happening at the same time, which was a bit of a change, was obviously Magento Marketplace, as in their commercials changed slightly. They obviously wanted to take a cut from everything that's being sold on Marketplace and selling directly through Marketplace, rather than what happened previously, which was just a referral to essentially everyone owns website.
Yeah, I sort of remember the old Marketplace. It was just, was it a link through? I can't 100% remember how it worked.
Yes.
It was all Magento 1?
Yeah,
and so
it was Magento Connect, yes.
Magento Connect. And could we theoretically install extensions through the admin using Magento Connect?
So yes, there was a way for custom packages to install the admin, but I don't think it ever took off, nor was it straightforward.
Yeah, and I think the rule of thumb was don't give the client, the merchant, any way of actually doing that because it probably will kill their site.
Yes, as in with access comes responsibility.
Exactly. So just an interesting backstory. We got involved with Magento in late 2015, and we're looped in with some people to start building the Magento marketplace with them. And there was another company involved out of Canada that did a front end in Drupal. And it was meant to be just like an app store. They were going to come up with an app store, and the goal was to have this. They had some pre-baked app style. It wasn't an app. It was a Drupal application that connected to a back end. So our job at Magento, and it was VJ leading it with a number of other developers. Our job was to connect this Drupal front end with Magento in the back end, and maybe leaving the ability to just log into the admin. But it turned into this huge project of just completely making everything available via APIs in Magento 1. This is on Magento 1.14, and then connecting this app to the back end. And I think we worked on that for 2 or 3, no more than that, 3 or 4 months with this company. It was April of 2016 that we got this call that said, we're going to redo the whole store in Magento 2. Can you guys do it in 8 weeks? If they bring a team from the Ukraine, and we had VJ come over from India and a couple other people go. We had a bunch of people come in. We all went to Austin, and they kicked out this store, and it was launched right before Imagine. So it was a really cool story. And it worked. I think that was like the amazing part, that on Magento 2, we built this store, and that's where all the payouts and everything happened through Magento 2. That's our, I don't know, call it claim to fame, but it was a very fun project. Everybody got along. Like, we had a dedicated Scrum Master from Magento. We had these 2 Cuban guys that worked for us at the time, and I just remember walking by their room in the hotel, and their normal voices were like this. They're just yelling, but of course in Spanish. And then at the end, we had a big party in Austin where the Cuban guys had some cigars, and Magento had a bunch of bourbon, and we just had this huge party out on the river. It was really fun. So yeah, so 2016 seems like forever ago.
It is, but also it isn't, I guess. Time goes fast in e-commerce, as in the one thing that's always true. The only constant is change. That still applies. And
So what?
Yeah, obviously the marketplace has come quite some way since then as well, but in other aspects it's fair to say they haven't come far enough.
Right.
And I think to me it's still a lost opportunity strategically, as in, if you look at a platform and community and what is the focal point of everyone involved in the community, that does go via themes and extensibility. And where do all these different parties come together? That is the marketplace, or it should be. whereas currently it's not there, and I currently don't see let's call it the appetite to make it that place.
So tell me how Fuman interacts with the marketplace. Do you get a lot of your business out of the marketplace, or is it a mixture of two, or do you tell me how from a business standpoint, I'm interested in hearing how it works for you, and it sounds like you have a few mixed messages or feelings about it.
Yes, so I still think as a long-term opportunity channel for us, I think there's still opportunity there, but as it stands today, most of our business is not going through marketplace. As in, we do have people that would prefer going via there, but for us, having lots of things built, what marketplace has also built, we're able to cater to and support our customers a whole lot better by doing it in-house.
Yeah, okay. So I'm assuming your extensions are available via Composer through packages or something like that. It works the same as, okay, yep. Just getting back to the Extension Developers Network, just give me an idea of how that started and who started it and why it started.
So I think, the origin story, I think I tried to tell it a while ago. Meet Magento New York, I think it was. So the moment really where it clicked in my head was we got like not quite a review, but feedback from a customer who said, Fuman, this was awesome. It worked first time. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, I have a pretty bad experience. And so at first I was like, yay, we're doing everything right, customer happy, surely we're doing better than our competitors, so this is great. But then I had this moment where I was like, hey, if the industry as a whole, 9 times out of 10 people have a bad experience, what does it mean for the industry? So yeah, ExtDN was born out of that idea that, hey, that there are more people that have a similar approach to making sure the customer has a good experience. It's trying to highlight those type of extension developers that provide the good experience and lifting the overall game of the extension developer industry, really. So yeah, we got together a group of people and trying to grow it organically since then, and trying to get involved with the right people at Magento, obviously, because as I said, marketplace, while a good idea, still has some way to go. So we always have feedback, and trying to highlight the developers that we think in that 1 out of 10 experience rather than the 9 out of 10 experience.
Tell us how it's funded. I'm interested in how the good developers are bubbled up to the top. And then I'm also interested in the blacklisted ones, or is there a way that you hear about blacklisted developers or agencies at least?
So in terms of how we are organized, it's essentially, let's call it an association, as in members apply to become part of ExtDN, and then they go through an application process where we ask quite a few questions, and then we have a quorum on our end where we go over an application and assess if it should go further or not, and then it's presented to the current members, and then each member can essentially say if they're okay with a new member joining or not. And so the wider we've gotten over time, a lot is based on reputation and sort of what we can glean out of public records. It's easy for someone to say we're the best, but obviously we try to put our feelers out and get an understanding of, if we accept a new member, is that going to be detrimental to the views of what people think of ExtDN, or is it actually going to be beneficial?
There's an actual website people can go to, right?
Yes, so it's extdn.org. So we went for the org domain, as I said, it's an association, but it's non-profit, it only exists for the goal of making sure that people have a great experience with extensions in the Magento suite.
And how do you interact with Magento proper on ExtDN?
So we have a few existing contacts where we have a semi-regular meeting with the marketplace people. So that has changed over the years quite a bit. So we've tried to connect with the different people over the years that we're responsible or are responsible on the marketplace side. So we try to give feedback where we can. And yeah, then through channels like these and through our members trying to spread the word of what ExtDN is and hopefully raise the awareness a little bit that what we stand for and hopefully what our members can deliver.
I remember one of the big complaints about the old marketplace or the new old marketplace was the fact that you could game the reviews. I think Karen Baker was a big advocate of saying that the reviews are broken on there. Have you thought about making an ExtDN or your own sort of marketplace that all these extensions would almost, I guess I don't want to use the word compete against Magento, but I suppose you would compete against the Magento marketplace. And then B, is there a place already that you can see customer reviews on actual extensions that people have installed?
I think the thought is always there to have a combined store, but equally we also know it's not going to be an easy one, as in currently it's not official association like the Magento Association, so it's not like an official legal body that ExtDN is. So to be able to take payments in any country and distribute them across the world without flagging any dodgy text business, we would have to take that step. So I think we're not quite at that stage yet where we would entertain those next steps to do that. In terms of reviews, that is something we've contemplated, but again, I think I'd rather use this interview to ask people really to leave reviews, especially good reviews, as in it's good for the remaining people in the community, as in if you have an actual experience, share that experience because other people can benefit from it. And on Marketplace, the number of actual reviews is a lot less than it should be. So in the old days, we might have had the problem of too many reviews where most of them were fake. But these days, there's hardly any reviews. Like on some of my free extensions, I have thousands of downloads, thousands of people put it in their cart, presumably installed it. I don't have any visibility of that. Like the reviews that you get doesn't work. And I can sort of glean from the message that they're saying that quite possibly they didn't install it, quite possibly they have something else, quite possibly the error message references code that's not in our extension. So that's the type of reviews you may get if you're lucky. But overall, it needs more people communicating back that it worked, which is what I assume will happen in most of the time. As I said, there's thousands of people installing the extensions, and if you don't hear anything, the assumption would be that it did most of the job.
I do feel like the marketplace could do a much better job. And we have one extension that was free for a long time, the Zendesk extension. I checked at some point, we had 10,000 downloads on this extension. And I think we have one review. I think Magento should be thinking about how do they get reviews on the extensions that come out of it. Because I don't think, and like the other thing is like having more visibility on who downloads it and the opportunity to even prompt them to get the review. There's just so many firewalls, I feel like, that are in between the extension provider and the person purchasing it or getting it for free. Yes, they can ask for support, they can contact you directly. But if they don't, and go back to the Zendesk extension as a good example, if they just download it and then they install it and it's free, we don't necessarily know who it is, what they've used it for, how many times they've used it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. But so that's not me being crazy.
It's also not a hard problem. It's just a problem of focus and actually someone wanting to do it. And that again goes back to what I was saying initially, is like seeing marketplace as a strategic importance to focus the community. And things like you could easily expand the existing module of marketplace, which is included in Magento, which just has like a way to existing installed extensions through the backend. Hey, recently installed extension. How did it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, someone needs to do it. Someone needs to have the appetite for building it, which is currently not there.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think that there could be a lot of things to make that part of it better. And I guess I'm not sure if it's Adobe and a lack of resources, or Adobe or in a lack of direction. I would imagine it's a little bit of both. From the resource standpoint, I find it a little bit not troubling. They do have so many resources, and just seeing what they've done, like with Magento U and how that folded into Adobe Digital Learning Services, it seems like the marketplace has a lot of, let's just say it has a lot of opportunity that they could grow on.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment of where things are today.
From the marketplace to your extensions, are you looking at some SaaS-based extensions and maybe even going off into other platforms other than Magento, or have you already done, have people asked you for extensions for other commerce platforms and SaaS platforms?
So we've had a couple of inquiries where people moved to different platforms, but at the moment, Fumin is fairly focused on one platform, as in we're a small player, and I think with focus comes a lot of benefits, as in like we know Magento inside and out, so we can provide a really good service and we understand the problems. Whereas duplicating that across different platforms would require substantial investment into ourselves to be able to deliver on the same sort of level, as in it takes a while to understand the intricacies of each and every platform. SaaS in a way makes some things a lot easier because you essentially take away lots of options, which, you know, if you have less options, then all of a sudden things are easy. So yeah, we'll see. At the moment, Magento is our main focus, and I currently don't have plans for 2021 to change that.
Interesting. So maybe Shopware is in your future.
We see if Ben Marks finally makes it out to New Zealand and convinces me that we need to jump into that space.
Okay, so just going back to your blog, how to find trustworthy information about your Magento extension. What was your conclusion on that? And do you think you can still do that? It's been 4 years since I think you wrote that post, but and I think that's something that's really important. And we've already determined that maybe Marketplace isn't meeting that expectation because we don't really know what's happening after it's been sold.
Yeah, so I think where there are reviews on Marketplace, they still have valid point in terms of that. I think they now have two different categories, which is a verified purchase and an unverified purchase. And I still think some people are still gaming the system in terms of buying their own extension and then creating their own review on it. I think that could still be very much a way to get that very first review. To, you know, like if you have no stars versus a 5-star, that's immediately, it does look so much better. So I think some people may be tempted to actually do that because it's easy enough. All you have to give up is essentially 30% of your purchase price because you get it back. So, you know, what you get out of it, I think, is quite possibly too much of an incentive to do that. But the other things I feel still apply. I probably would extend my list slightly, which is if you find an extension, I think these days it's a lot easier. Be prepared to cycle through a few different extensions, just trial them out quickly, as in most actually have a money back guarantee. So if it doesn't have a money back guarantee, okay, then don't do it. But for example, Marketplace would have it. So by the time you cycle through 3 different extensions, do a quick install, just see how they go. And then you have a good idea of which will get you closer to your goal. I think a lot of people think that an extension is going to solve all their problems, but maybe approaching it from the standpoint of view is, hey, if this sort of saves me 60, 75, 80% of development time, as long as the extension is a good base to work off and is sort of built with extensibility in mind, then you work off a really solid base, which might have already covered a lot of the edge cases which your project management discovery process hasn't uncovered yet. By building on a base which gets you 80% there, sure, maybe you need to trial 2 different extensions because one is coded better than the other. But that's why you engage agencies, because they quite possibly have that experience across a few different existing extensions that they can fall back on.
Okay, that brings up a couple of interesting questions. The first one is how do you help agencies or at the end user deal with like performance issues? So as an agency, we come across customers who may have 70 extensions because they feel like every extension is going to solve every single problem. And the more extensions they have, the more problems they'll get rid of. And they don't realize that when you're going to say Magento 2.4, every single one of those extensions also has to come along for the ride.
So I think there's a few things to unpack in there as well. But so one of the things we try to communicate a lot more these days is what you get from us in terms of we keeping on top of every single extension and every single release. So every 3 months, a new Magento release comes out, and you know, like depending on how many active release lines there are, that means we jump into action and we actually individually test those extensions on all the new releases. So we do this for every extension 4 times a year. So this is work that we take on. And if you're able to install the extension on the new version, that means we have gone through our process to say, this is good. So that's where I think some of the benefits of using external extensions is. You pay a small amount for that to be kept up to date, kept working. If we did our job well, for example, on our email attachments extension, over the last year and a half, there were about 3 to 4 different changes inside our extension, just the way templating, emailing, etc. works. But if we've done our job, you wouldn't have even noticed. You run your composer update and our extension just pulls in the right version for the Magento version you're on, and you're none the wiser, it just works.
Yeah, and I think that's theoretically, I saw a new version of Big Sur just came out. Not Big Sur. Is it Big Sur? I don't know. The new version, there's a new version of of Mac OS that just came out. So theoretically, you want that to upgrade and not to be any problems. So I 100% agree with you. So then how do you get the myriad of other developers out there doing the exact same thing? And I think that's the question. And I think one of the things that the marketplace could improve on would be to, I guess they do already give the version. So in that process that you've just gone over, ensuring that all those are upgraded and that version is correct.
So that sort of depends a little bit on how you approach versioning of your extension and how conservative / open you are with defining your dependencies. As if I provide an extension which says I'm compatible with Magento, then no matter which version of Magento you are now and way into the future, this will install. So that is the easy route, and the easy route has been taken by many. So therefore you have no safeguards. It will install. Nothing will tell you if it has been verified on the latest version or not. It's up to the agency / merchant / end customer to find out if that works or not.
Yeah, and just to get the alternative to that is making sure that your module doesn't upgrade with the latest version until you've tested it, and then you change the version. So essentially, you're a module that is only compatible with up to some version is a roadblock for the next person, or they have to manually force the upgrade with that extension.
We've gotten a whole lot more explicit over the last few years, as in I'm now of the view is in if we've tested it explicitly, it works. But if we haven't done our job yet, then something will be holding back until you can take that step.
Yeah, and I think that you would agree that the latter, the one where you're explicitly saying this is not going to go to the next version until we've tested it, is the better.
It depends, because it comes with an implicit promise that we are on top of our game to actually be very close to GA release, and we've gotten a whole lot better with that. That's actually a good change that has come out of Adobe. They provide a bit of a pre-release time frame. So during that time frame, that's when we either have better access or the pre-release time frame. So during that time, we're incredibly busy to make sure that we hit that prior to GA. So once GA general availability hits, that our extensions are available across all channels so people can just update. But obviously, if you're not that quick, if your maintenance window is, hey, we're still not compatible with Magento 2.4, then obviously holding back all stores, to actually try that themselves to see if to go through their own testing process. In that case, it might be preferable to essentially let it go and let the other people do the job.
Tell me a little bit about PWA and how are you dealing with that in terms of extensions?
So I think it's fair to say PWA and Magento, that's PWA Studio, has seen quite a bit of hype, and I think it came out of the pain points of the existing front end, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about that in our ExtDN open chat tomorrow. So hopefully everyone was able to join that. I'm not sure when we're going to air this interview. So with that, I think it's been a long time in the making, and they have quite a few good ideas around extensibility. And we've tried to, as ExtDN members, try to engage at various stages. But I think time moves slowly on that front. As in, I've actually just gone back on some of the emails to see when was the first time we tried to get involved with that. And that's pretty much from the initial stages of when PWA Studio started, where nothing was extensible, there was no code, no nothing, but that was obviously way too early. But we're still not at a point yet where it's extensible.
Yeah.
So there's still work to be done, and similar for other front-end solutions. So yeah, I'm really hoping that some of that extensibility, the ideas are there. It's just a matter of making sure that all the right places are getting opened up and actually useful.
Okay, and then the $10,000 question, the new Hoofa theme versus Luma versus PWA, where do you, or versus all the other JavaScript front ends like Vue Storefront and ScannyWeb. There's a bunch of them out there now. I guess the PWA versus this built-in theme, where are you sitting on those?
So my hope is that PW Studio / Venia / maybe something else becomes again a new Luma theme, as in a quick start where existing extension points are well defined, where everyone knows, hey, if you when I run an installation for an extension, and if I wanted something to show up in the front end, I can make estimated guesses in which area I can add something that will just show up. And once those are defined for any front end, then it becomes a matter of how can we get into that process for an extension. And with the various front ends, there is, and that's something we raised, again, 3 years ago. Back then it was Deity and one other one. Anyway, commerce tools, I think. So there is lots of different front ends out there. How do we keep them all extensible, and ideally not in a way that duplicates efforts to a huge extent? And that's really still an open question. Vue Storefront was the other one. So different stack, still JavaScript. So maybe there's some room there to keep things consistent.
My big beef so far on Luma has been, well, just the speed in which the out of the box loads. I'm excited about PWA Studio because I think out of the box, even on a small Amazon server, it loads in under 2 seconds. But I think Luma just default loads in 4 seconds or something like that. And I think the goal now is everybody wants less than 1 second load times. And I don't see Magento working very hard on their either Luma theme, and I think that PWA Studio isn't quite there yet for people to use. So that I think the big thing that has to be tackled now is the speed. And I'm hoping we're doing our first live store or customer store on the Hoofa. I'm doing the Finnish way, the Hoofa theme. So I'm excited to see how it works and how it turns out.
I think the summary of the Hoofa theme is really the front end Magento 2 deserved. So yeah, hopefully that pans out, and I think it's a really good current state of having a different option, and that really shows the possibilities with an engaged community, as in Magento is so flexible. You can just rip out the things that you don't like. If you put in the effort, you can just come up with a completely new front end where everyone goes, this is amazing. And that's something you can do with Magento. So again, that's, I guess, why we're all still in it, because it offers that flexibility.
Yeah, and you really can't do that with Shopify.
I haven't tried, so I can't.
So tell us, how is life in New Zealand right now?
Still good. I went for my big coastal challenge run a couple of weeks ago, the next day, but actually the next 2 days. So it was a pretty good experience. It was a lot more in the water than I thought.
And was that a formal race? Or is it just, I saw a video, there's a lot of people there. Was it an actual race, or is it just a lot of people getting together to run?
No, it was an actual race, as in like with transponder and everything. Some people work pretty fast, not me. But I made it to the finish line, which is what was the main thing for me.
So I do have another friend in New Zealand, and she said that you're not wearing masks in general now. Is that, or are people wearing masks when you're out and about in general?
So it depends a little bit. Currently, Auckland is, so we have 4 levels of restrictions. And last week, we actually were back at level 3, which is somewhat strict with schools closed. With level 2 and level 1, there is a mandate to use masks on public transports, but otherwise limited use. Yeah.
On the Big Island here, I think I heard that there was 2 cases or something, and we had to get tested before we left, and we get tested when we land. So there's a lot of restrictions in Hawaii, at least on the Big Island, and masks are very common. Like you are meant to always have your mask on. So I think that's a good thing. And where my home state is Minnesota, which is in the middle of the tundra, same thing. Everybody's wearing a mask, and it's this thing to do.
Which is great, because masks help, and if everyone does their bit, then hopefully we'll all get out of it quicker.
I am signed up for a race in June. It's called Grandma's Marathon, and this will be my 4th time I've done that race. And they have a new algorithm that they're going to employ for this race to strategically place runners so they're never more than 6 feet away from each other. And they've capped the race at 4,000 people. So it's right now, it's billed as the first big race that's going to go in the US. That's going to be COVID, that they're going to think about COVID and how that works on a bigger scale. So number one, I'm hoping it happens, because I think we're all having race fatigue. But number 2, it'll be interesting to see if they can execute this plan.
So during the race, you shouldn't ever be closer than 6 feet to anyone else.
You can, but they've employed some algorithm that will space people out as they start. So they took the results from 2019, and they're gonna put those results into play for this one. So you have to say your proposed finish time, your average pace, and all these other things, and they're going to take those and then work it out over 42K.
Very interesting. Good luck with that, and yeah, we'll see how we go. If you need like a little 6 feet umbrella around you to run.
Yeah, it won't be that strict. The goal is just to make it safe.
Hopefully by June, things are already looking in the right direction there as well.
Yeah, our state they just announced that if they're going down to 45 and older, if you have a health condition, 45 and older, you'll get your vaccine. So I think we're at 30% already in our state, which I think is pretty good. I think the goal is 80% or something like that, which they say we're going to be all done by May. So
that'd be pretty amazing. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
The best part of this is that we're going to look back at this interview in 3 years and go, what are they talking about?
No, it'll be in the history books.
Right, exactly.
It'll be with us for a long time. So that the memories of it and the changes that have come out of it.
Why don't you tell us, we'll give Fuman a plug, fuman.com, and tell us how we can contact you, and we'll put the website on and the notes and the interview, and give you a nice shameless plug.
I'm not really good at these things. Just check us out for any extension needs, especially around making your life as an admin easier. If you want to customize PDFs, we've done that for quite some time. And if you use Xero as your accounting platform, we're also specialists in that.
All right, well, I'll help you there too, because I've been using Fuman's extensions since 2010. I'm guessing, no, but I bet it was 2009 that we first started using your PDF customizer. And I'll say that then it was awesome, and it's even awesomer. or more awesome. I don't know which is the correct form, but I think awesomer is a good one. So I would, and it's fuman.com. So I will give you a more than 10 years plug and I know that you're like 22 and you started when you're 10 or something. So it's an amazing story and an amazing journey.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And we actually have your mic shot on our website already as well. So just.
Oh, geez. All right. Thanks again. Thanks for your time. And I will alert you when this interview goes.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Looking forward to it, and we'll see what comes out of it.
Yeah. Have a good afternoon. It's 3:30 there tomorrow. Is that right?
1:30.
It's 1:30 and it's Wednesday. Okay. It's 2:30 on Tuesday here.
We're always a day ahead.
Day ahead. Got it. Okay. That makes sense. All right. Have a good day.
Cool. All right. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.